Welcome to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita, NAMI Kansas, and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We're the largest grassroots advocacy network for people with mental illness and their family members, led by people with mental illness and their family members. We have 800 affiliates across the nation and 15 here in Kansas and one right here in Wichita. We provide awareness, support, and education and advocacy for people affected by mental illness. Our purpose here is to provide a community conversation on KSUN Radio that provides insight into what it's like to live with mental illness and be in recovery with mental illness. Our intention and hope is that this program will change people's attitudes and assumptions and stereotypes, the way we all think about mental health conditions. So my name is Andy Martin. I'm the Director of Communications for NAMI Kansas. I work and live in Topeka, but always enjoy a trip to Wichita. I'm in recovery for general anxiety, and like everybody, I struggle with the stresses of life and challenges of being fully human, but I'm doing okay, and I know that I have many gifts and talents that I can offer to my work and my family and my friends and my community. So it's my pleasure to introduce our guest for today. This is Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Andy.
Glad you're here today.
I thought I'd try it out, see what it's like.
Yeah. So how would you describe your journey with mental illness? What's your relationship with mental illness?
Well, I've been around mental illness my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I had cousins that were suffering from mental illness, but we didn't know what it was. My mom had severe depression, and she was diagnosed with, I'll think of it in a minute. I hate it when this happens.
You mean you're fully human?
Yeah. She would stay in a recliner all day. She got out of bed, but she didn't get out of the recliner all day. So her life was just miserable. But then she made supper when my dad came home because it had to be ready when my dad came home.
Yeah.
But then there's others, and then through the years, and then I got involved. I got involved in it before NAMI. I got involved with veterans. We were active duty then, and then when I got out of the Air Force, I retired from the Air Force. I was involved with some guys that I worked with that I noticed there was a problem, but they didn't notice it. And
so as a friend and an ally, you were right there with them and seeing that they were struggling with something, even though they couldn't see it themselves.
And one of the biggest things besides stigma is trust. When you work with someone, you have to get their trust, and that doesn't just happen on the first conversation. So it's something that I have been doing for a lot of years.
So when was your first real encounter with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness?
When I had a crisis in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the first crisis, but it was the first crisis that we recognized in Wichita.
And
after we lived in Wichita.
So this would have been after you retired from the military?
Oh yeah.
And so you realized that there was something pretty significant going on, and you needed some assistance. And so how did you find out about NAMI?
Well, the agencies throughout Wichita and there's a number of them. There's so many people in Wichita that are dedicated to helping those in need, and we picked up the phone book and the phone and called, and they told us, we told them what was wrong, and they said, go see NAMI. Yeah. And they told us where to go, and we happened to make it like the next day was a meeting.
So you got to go to a support group?
So we went to a program, but we talked with individuals.
Right. Well, we're going to take our first break here, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it's like to be a family member and the voice of a family member as they're affected by a person with mental illness. Welcome back to Our Own Voice. We're talking with our guest Tony about his experience as a family member, and your mom had trauma-induced epilepsy?
Yeah, yes.
And you've had cousins and other family members, and had to be that person that was caught in the crisis. And somehow you found NAMI Wichita and got to go to a program, and I'll just kind of do a shout out here. NAMI Wichita has a website in terms of NAMI Wichita.org, and you can also email info@namiwichita.org, or the phone number if you're experiencing a crisis in your family or someone's struggling with mental illness. You can call 316-686-1373, and we'll get back with you as soon as we can. So, Tony, what's kind of the main thing that you feel like you've learned in your experience of being affected by mental illness because someone you love has been experiencing mental illness? What have you learned about yourself?
You have to put your heart in. You just put your heart into it. You have to care. You have to be all the way in. If you can't be all the way in, just get all the way out, because that's not how we are. That's not what we should do with anybody we are around that has a mental health issue. If you're not all the way in, there's that lack of trust there, and they're not going to get better.
And it's not going to help you either.
That's right.
I mean, if the intention here is trying to help the person with mental illness live their full potential and move to some kind of recovery rather than just coping or existing with the mental illness, we have to learn how to cope ourselves and do more than coping. We have to be fully in.
Fully in.
So, tell us a little bit about your story with NAMI. So you went to a program and you found something you liked there?
Well, the people I talked to, they were the reason why I got the information I got, because they knew what they were talking about. They had pamphlets. They knew right where a folder was to give me and say, here, take this and read this information that's in it, and this will help you. And they pointed out the directions, instructions for a support group that would coming up in the third week.
Right.
And I would be able to ask questions to a doctor, and there just was a wealth of knowledge. So after I kept coming to, and that's a key with NAMI, is that we need our members, we need our the people that come there for advice, and that we need them to come back. Don't just throw us away. Don't just come one time and forget about coming back. We need you all the time. There's too many people that need your help, and besides your family member.
Yeah, that's one of the things about this work is that we come in and we need support and we need education and advocacy, and then in the middle of it we realize that we need to give back. We can't.
And that's where I was going to say that I stayed because I wanted to give back.
So you've gotten some additional training because of NAMI, is that right?
Yeah, I teach family to family, although I haven't for a while, but I teach NAMI Homefront. That's a tough one. We try to get our veterans. Our veterans they have to open up. They have to talk to their family member, whether it be their spouse, significant other, or a good friend. Those people that are around them want to help them, and NAMI Homefront, not just Homefront, it's NAMI Homefront, and it's a great class. It's 6 weeks long, and it's a wealth of information, and it's all geared toward veterans. It's all geared toward military. There's military talk there.
Well, Tony, I really appreciate your the way that you've internalized our work. You've also taken on a volunteer role within the NAMI affiliate here, and I want to thank you for your leadership and your support of our work. Because we're a volunteer-driven organization. We're volunteers that have experienced mental illness, helping people and family that are affected by mental illness. So thanks for sharing your voice with us today. We're going to take another break, and then we'll be back for Our Own Voice. Welcome back to Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio. I'm here with Tony from NAMI Wichita. And Tony, we're looking at the voice of and the perspective of a family member, and you've had that experience in many ways, but you've gotten to teach several of our family-to-family classes. And is there a part of that class that you always enjoy, or that you think is the most energizing for you?
Well, it's always good to get the student or the person, the family member who is attending the class, to open up. The first two classes of either family to family or NAMI Homefront it's pretty quiet. There's not too much going on from the student body, so the teacher is the one that's trying to pull this out of them. But then it opens up, and once they start telling their story, we have 3 boxes of tissue on our tables that we pass around the classroom because it gets pretty wet in there. And it's not just the family, it's not just the students that begin to cry and show their emotion. It's the teachers as well.
Yeah.
And I'm a sentimental guy, and it doesn't bother me to cry, but I get the feeling that they have. I feel what they feel.
Right.
And it just happens.
So what is it? What are the emotions that you hear them expressing as they're finally kind of talking about what their family's experiencing?
Well, they will open up and tell a story about when their son or daughter comes through the airport and they hadn't seen him for a while. Not everybody could go to the hospital where their son or daughter was at a military installation. I'm talking about a veteran here now. Not everybody can go to a hospital all the time or spend time there to see their son or daughter. But when they come home, just to listen to how they were treated or how they spent their time in a hospital or around others and what they saw, it's not easy to, the parent will they can't hold it. The emotions are too great.
It's a feeling of powerlessness that there's nothing they can do and that they couldn't be there.
Right.
Am I close?
You're dead on. They just feel helpless. Not everybody has a great, wonderful job at one of the bigger businesses in Wichita. And I'm talking strictly about Wichita now. Not everybody has one of those good jobs that they can just fly somewhere to see their...
Right. So I think that one of the more difficult things about recovery too, whether we're talking about addiction or mental illness or whatever, is that so much of it really is the work of the person with the illness. Now they may need help, they may need support, but it's really challenging. That one of the biggest challenges of the family member is not doing it for them and not helping them achieve their fullest potential and allowing them to struggle. And it's hard. I mean, in my own role as a parent, we were really concerned that one of our kids would have a learning disability, and it was so tough to kind of keep saying, okay, I can't do this for him. He's got to do this for himself.
See, what we're not saying here is that in the beginning, the parents don't, or the spouse doesn't understand what their family member, their loved one, is going through with whatever mental illness,
whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder or
anything,
schizophrenia, bipolar.
Right. Because if they're depressed, if they're going through major depression and they don't get out of bed and they stay in bed all day, they're not faking it. If they don't get out of bed to take a shower or to clean up, or they don't eat and they go back to their bedroom to stay the rest of the day, they're not faking it. That's what they are going through. That's the internal.
That's the reality.
The reality that's going on. That's right.
It's hard not to feel like they're trying to take advantage of or abuse or control other people by their behavior rather than just trust that that's what's real. So we're here with Tony talking about what it's like to be a family member, giving a voice to people as they help other people with mental illness. This is Our Own Voice. Hello and welcome back to our final segment of Our Own Voice. This is a partnership on mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita, NAMI Kansas, and your KSUN Community Radio. I want to give a special shout out to our technical production team, David Peterson, our executive producer, and David Larson, our technical producer. It's so great to have David to help you out. And I'm pleased that David Peterson is here in the studio with us today.
Hello, Andy.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing super fantastic, Oracle.
Oh, okay. This is a great day. So I'm glad that you have your own voice to talk to us a little bit about NAMI Wichita. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And you bring an important voice to the table in terms of not a person with mental illness, but as a family member, right?
That is correct.
So, if there's one thing you'd want people to hear about your experience with NAMI, what would you want people to hear as they think about people living with mental illness?
Of all the different categories that NAMI covers, probably in my mind, education, knowing what people with mental illness are going through is by far a leader in my mind. But of course, advocacy and destigmatizing mental illness is also very important. But the more you know what is going on in your loved one's life, the more you're able to cope with it and make some positive changes. So,
talk to us a little bit about the NAMI Wichita affiliate here. We have it's its own not-for-profit organization and has its own board, and then you guys have support groups and educational programs. Talk to us a little bit about if people wanted to get more involved with NAMI Wichita, what would that look like?
Well, we are the largest affiliate in Kansas.
Yes.
And we have a good group of people that get involved and come to our affiliate meetings, which we have every first of the month on Tuesday, every first Tuesday of the month. And that meeting is very informational. We normally have a guest speaker, not always, but we are open to the general public, and we'd love to have them. We have that meeting, and then we have the third Tuesday of every month, which is Ask a Doctor, and it's followed by recovery support groups. And we have that for both those that have a mental illness and those that are family members that have someone with a mental illness. And both of these programs are right downtown at the First Presbyterian Church, 525 North Broadway. And you can come in off the market side. There's a big canopy to walk under, and we would love to have you. It's again, you do not have to be a member.
It's one of the things about NAMI that's so easily forgotten, that everything we do is free of charge. There's no cost to our support groups and our educational activities.
That is correct. And we have educational activities. They normally are in the fall and the spring. Some go into the winter. We normally don't do them in the summertime. But we have what we call family to family classes, and it's a class for family members and friends of individuals with a mental illness. And that's what I've participated in a few times and have become a teacher in. And it's, again, very enlightening for people to get involved with this and to understand what their loved one's going through. We have also peer-to-peer. And these classes are for those with a mental illness, and only those with mental illness.
So one of the things, just to kind of help kind of do the NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness lingo, when we talk about a peer, we're talking about a peer leader, and that's someone that has a mental illness and is in recovery, working to recover with that mental illness.
That is correct.
As opposed to a family member, a friend, or an ally. Yeah. And all of our classes and support groups are led by people that have lived experience. So if you're in a peer-to-peer class, it's going to be taught by somebody that has lived experience with mental illness, or family to family. It's going to be taught by a family member who's had a family person that's dealing with mental illness.
That's very precise.
You want to tell real quickly about the Basics support group?
The Basics is for a class of parents and primary caregivers of children and adolescents with symptoms of diagnosis of mental illness.
And we also have a life support group here in Wichita on the second and fourth Mondays at West Heights United Methodist Church, right?
That is correct.
And then, of course, we have our NAMI on campus at Wichita State University. Go Shockers. And I just want to thank you publicly, David, and all of the volunteers at NAMI Wichita for what you're doing to help our cause. I want to thank KSUN Community Radio for their opportunity to give our voice and share our voice with our community. I'd like to thank all of our guests that have been with us today. And I want to just invite all of you that are listening today to realize that we all have a voice that we can use, and we can use that voice to help other people and encourage and support and educate. And remember that you're not alone. Thanks.
Cool.